because I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that a little bit further.
Yeah, no problem. And by the way, we haven't set a meeting yet. Aisha hasn't set a meeting yet, but we're going to be setting a meeting soon for
Oh
translation
yeah,
work.
yeah, definitely. We have to actually go over uh, the
I
translation.
review or I review. Hello.
I guess a review.
Yeah. So let's get started here. First, let's say hello.
Should we
You're
say
very
hello? Actually,
mechanic
you
like
do,
King Kong.
and you have two hands, so it's like hello, hello.
Yeah, that was the point. Yeah. Today's topic is we the last few meetings we've been using these live streams as the way me and Usama were doing meetings for Uniting the Cults before it was a live stream. We're getting work done, not just entertaining you guys or delivering information to you guys. If anything, though, we're trying to receive information from you guys on the work that we're trying to do. We're trying to get feedback. That's part of what this is too. So what we're doing is, at least in this episode, outlining the second lecture episode of the Ex-Muslim Advocates Learning Series, which starts in the first week of 2026, hopefully. On schedule to do that, at least. It's Sundays, 8 a.m. Central Time. Holy shit, that's really early for you. Are you okay for 6 a.m.?
Well,
Are
I
you a morning
usually
person?
it goes back a while back. By default, I'm not a morning person, but I recently have, for the past maybe couple of months, because of my work schedule, I've been waking up really early to run as early as possible in the morning. So I do wake up very early.
Hmm. I wake up at like 3. That's my normal now. And sometimes it's earlier. It's rarely later. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something a little bit. That's a little bit extreme for me.
It's too much for me too. I'm not, I don't have full control over it or anything. It's not like I'm wanting. It's not like I have an alarm and getting up. It's just getting up.
Yeah.
Now, before we get to business, let's do some announcements. Let's start with this one. On September 30th, we celebrated International Blasphemy Day 2025 live on this channel. We recommend everyone to watch it. Link is in the comments. A big thing we talked about that day was a very specific current situation of somebody dealing with basically a blasphemy issue. Betty, or Ibtisam Lashkar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say it very well. So at the least, please, if you haven't already done it, sign the petition. There's 5,882 signatures right now. She's in prison. She has a 30-month sentence, and she's in really horrible health. This could be a. I hate to say it like this. I've heard other people say it this way, so I feel comfortable saying it. This could be a death penalty.
Well, we have to emphasize that she's a cancer survivor, so it's not that she's in perfect health and she's been put in a bad prison situation. She shouldn't be detained in prison under these conditions.
There's the petition. We also urge people to do more than this. We have a set of instructions you can follow, various things you can do to help free Betty. And let me put that on the screen too, or no, it's okay. It's a lot of different ways that you can help. Social media things. We need to raise awareness, and that's what it's all about. You also, on that same page, can find out a little bit about what has happened with Betty in the case. Anything else, Usama, before we move on?
I mean, we can talk endlessly about this kind of situation, not just Betty's situation, but in general, people who might be jailed for blasphemy or apostasy. But yeah, I
It's thousands and thousands of people that have dealt with the consequences, but also everyone else is dealing with consequences too because it's pressuring them to stay hidden. So it's affecting everyone. I guess the people that it affects the least is maybe people living in this country, the U.S., and countries like it. I
yeah,
mean, that's why you and I do things like this.
the thing is with I mean with someone like Betty, because she has already been an activist in Morocco for quite a while, and she is a high profile person in that regard. Her case does get some coverage. It does get highlighted because of that, but we also shouldn't forget about all the other people who might actually be facing something similar or even worse, because it doesn't really reach the media as much. And I'm thinking especially about places like Pakistan, where this thing happens, I don't know, every other day. You hear a bit of news about someone who has been accused of blasphemy, and this escalated. Sometimes it escalates into some kind of a legal issue, but very often it's also uh, uh, people taking action, people in the street taking action. So it's doubly dangerous. And it's not only the government; it's also the populace itself. If it gets agitated about this kind of thing, it's very often that you would see people turning against the person who's accused rather than supporting them.
There's a new thing in the background, network of people working on the Free Betty campaign. It was suggested, Mariam Namazi said this, that we need a long-term plan, 30-month plan, 29-month plan, the full sentence
Hmm.
of what we're going to do from now until then. One idea she gave was something we can give to YouTubers for them to, bring attention to the issue. And since we're doing this already, I added an idea of let's make a template, an instruction template of
Yeah,
what you and I are doing.
yeah. I
With
think
specific messaging that they can already use, make it very easy for them to do what we're doing, and customizable. Obviously, they can change it however they want, so they don't sound exactly like us. And so I will be making that template, basically just writing down what we're already doing, and then in that template I'm going to put links to some of these that we've done. I guess I'll do the best one, put links for the best versions of what we've done
right.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I'll have to figure out which ones those are, and then that'll be a template. Maybe the first person I'll do this with is Alim, Secular Spirit. He's already said that he'd like to do something, but we haven't I haven't given him instructions on how to do it or anything. This will solve it right there. If it works with him, then it's going to work with everyone else. Then it's a matter of make a plan to contact the others, and step by step we'll get to something more than what's happening right now.
Yeah, no, it's I think definitely this has to be a kind of a concerted effort where it's not only the fact that this stays in the awareness of people, but also that this is coming from many different people at the same time, so that the topic stays alive. And again, it's not only about Betty's case, it's for anybody who might have been exposed to something similar or faces something similar, whether
Well,
it's
yeah, whatever successful impact happens with Betty, that's something that can be built upon for the next person.
yeah.
So like a how they say it in the law is you setting a precedent.
Hmm.
Once you got one thing achieved, it can be used as a reference for next time.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
you
mentioned,
build momentum that way.
yeah, I mentioned in a previous conversation about something that might be along those lines, where there has been already a precedent in Morocco for someone who is actually associated with Betty. that was jailed, and then the king himself intervened and released her. So I don't know if that's the direction that people want to push towards. I feel that this is kind of an extra legal, not an actual legal action. So when you want to think about it as a kind of a template, if you're going to be approaching a king, this means that you want basically uh, uh, to be on good terms with the king, or to basically it's a kind of a compromise that might be
Well, the
damaging.
king must have thought he's gaining some political advantage,
Yeah, that's exactly the
which
point.
is usually the case, even if it's not a king and it's just a politician. That's
Yeah,
how a lot of them work.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
That's the problem that I'm talking about. That it does. I wouldn't say it compromises the integrity of the situation, but it puts one in a kind of a vulnerable situation where you're dependent on the favors or the will of some politician, or even a body, if it's not just a single person.
Okay, so let's move on to the main topic. First, as we explain these ideas, um, we would like feedback from you all on, what you think you need to, I want to change this wording. Instead of activists here, I want advocates. I guess next time it'll be updated because the comment's already there. Not just advocates, not just activists that are public, advocates for your own well-being. Mm-hmm. So let's say you think your dad is crossing your boundaries. If you learned better on how to talk about such things, it would help your situation a lot. It'll help the rest of the world too, in effect, in a small way. Your family will get better. Your children's situation will get better. So in a sense, that's like activism. It's a very small type. It's about your own life, but it's effective, and this is how things are going to get built. Mm-hmm. And then one day, some of those people will come out of their shell and say, I want to be public now. And maybe that takes 20 years. So you have to build people up from like the beginning, Although we can't really deal with baby. Yeah, I don't want anyone to like bring their 1-day-old baby to my house and say, okay, raise him. That maybe doesn't work. That's a little bit much.
Yeah, but imagine all the voices that we're actually able to hear right now, whether they are anonymous or actually people who are showing their names, faces, etc. It's a really big advance compared to how the situation was 10, 20, 100 years ago, where you wouldn't even think of something of that sort coming out into the public, because the general persona is that no, we don't have people who leave religion. There's no such thing.
Yeah, deny that we exist. That's a common tactic.
Yeah, it's like also this is related to shame in some way, because if you have, in a traditional conservative society, if you have someone who has committed adultery, the word adultery and committed, when you're putting them together, they had extramarital sex, or they had some kind of a sexual relation that is not within the context of marriage. In such a society, it would be a shame on the family itself to have this kind of individual there. And that's why we end up with something like honor killing, because you're trying to erase that shame from the family. And so
people, it's weird that they think it does that. If you kill your daughter, it erases the shame. What the fuck? Shouldn't that add another shame? You killed your daughter.
The paradox the paradox is that despite all the pain and all the misery that's going to be caused by that, including the death of a person, but also the effect within the family itself. They have lost a person who is, I'm
I
sure,
think I
loved.
get. I think I get where you're going with that. If you compare the two pains, and you're choosing between the rock and the hard place, and the two situations are accept the shame and feel the pain of the shame versus kill your daughter and take all the pain that goes around that. They figure, oh, kill your daughter pain is less than the
Yeah,
pain of
yeah.
the shame. That's fucking insane.
Yeah, and this has to do also with the fact that in that kind of mindset, a daughter is not. I mean, she's a person, but she's not quite at the same level as a male, for example. And so, in a way, she's dispensable. You can get another daughter if you're still married, if you're still fertile, and so on. So it's a little bit extreme when it's put that way, but the people in that kind of mindset, and I'm not really saying that everybody thinks that way, but this mindset does exist, and unfortunately, it's more common than people would like it to be. Um, these people value this honor. I'm not sure if it's actually something that should be called honor. They value their honor far more than they value the value of the life of that individual. And so, why do they do that? Well, because if you lose that so-called honor, you're going to be losing your existence within society. That's what they call social death, which is something that people who leave religion actually
Okay,
do.
so I was wrong to boil it down to just feeling the pain of the shame because I was thinking just emotional pain. You're saying there's environmental. I mean, you could get boycotted by your business could be boycotted.
Oh yeah, you can get kicked out of the village, the tribe, literally, physically get kicked out. So
Okay, I made it sound smaller. Anyway, don't miss any EALS live streams. Again, it's starting the first week of 2026, so subscribe to the channel. You can also remember the I'm saying remember like everybody's heard it. EALS is two parts: the weekly live stream and the discussion forum. You can explore the discussion forum right now. You can also, there's a link to apply to the program, and 2 people now have access to the forum.
can you tell us why only 2 people? Is it because there are other applications, or are these the only people? And
I have not really advertised it. This is the only place people are hearing it, is from this live stream.
Okay, well, I think we talked a little bit about this last time. Maybe trying to get a few more people to in order to have that kind of pre-launch discussion, at least to see what kind of topics there might be.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta first start advertising it. I haven't done that yet.
Mhm.
I only did the presentation to the EXMI less than a week ago.
Okay.
I could tell you guys more about those kind of things, but I figured this is going to be planning the reason episode instead of talking about the external things. We're now accepting applications. You can click on the link in the comments. Okay, now to the point. So, Usama, I need another sheet open here. The EALS spreadsheet. So real quick, after the EXMI meeting, I emailed everyone, because not everyone was in the meeting, but I wanted to email everyone who wasn't in the meeting. And I got a really cool reply from Wissam Sharafuddin, co-founder of Muslimish. He said, I know it's not an exact quote, but he said, "I'm impressed by your consistency and perseverance. I am at your service." That's really cool. And he let everyone else see that. I think that's good. And now we got to figure out how to work him into the program, where he would be in it. I haven't thought about that much yet. I also contacted Aisha, EXMNA, to try to get Muhammad Sayed for one of the episodes. And she's going to talk to him. The episode that I want with him on it is the collaboration episode, which is like saying how to work with people in a team, how to make a nonprofit organization, that kind of thing.
Mm, yeah.
And why I picked that one, that their organization seems to be the most impactful in all of what's happening. They got the most things going on, I think. I don't really know. I'm kind of new to all this anyway.
Yeah, they also have a lot of connections. I mean, they're very, very active in DC.
Jenny is also going to be involved. Hopefully, we're going to have an episode on feminism, and hopefully, she's the one doing that with me. So after I sent that email, I don't even know if I should be saying this. I didn't get permission or anything. I hear so many things in private. I don't know what's allowed to be said in public.
Well,
so
then maybe
about Sam, that's private information that I'm making public. I'm guessing he would be okay with me saying it out loud like this.
I mean, it's not information as such. It's an expression of a sentiment, I guess.
It's more metadata than the data, right?
Yeah. I guess it's okay. But if depending on the type of conversation that one has, sometimes.
Here's another piece of information. Mariam Namazi replied in the private group we have, and she said she thinks it's great, but she won't be able to participate. Within 24 hours, she was giving a lot of feedback in the same chat, and the feedback was amazing. It's helping me develop this program. So She's already participating in my view. Plus, even though she's not going to be on an episode, she has so many good videos on the internet already, speeches, that I think are lecture-worthy speeches. So I'm going to be using those. I remember one speech right now where she talked about using creativity in your activism. That's worth an episode on its own. Mostly we'll be playing that video and trying to explain it with examples. And a lot of what she gave feedback on made me realize how much I have to change episode 1 about the guiding philosophy of this program, which is focused on love or compassion or empathy or care, or because there's so many fucking words and I got to pick the right one. I've been using love for now.
Well, it's a kind of an umbrella term, and if this is eventually going to be actionable, it's probably going to end up becoming a little bit more precise or more specific about what the actual meaning of the word is.
Oh yeah, that has to be the whole episode. One thing I'll be talking about is the concept of non-zero sum versus zero sum, win-win versus win-lose. Yeah. Working together versus working against each other. Which is like, first of all, those kind of concepts like started in at least the non-zero sum one is economics. It's math. It's putting math on love. Measuring love is the way I'm describing it.
There are so many different ways of also quantifying that you can say are axiomatizing the idea of love. For example, talking about the golden rule for action as a kind of a way of thinking about what needs to be done and what shouldn't be done. So it does create a kind of a chess-like, if you want, kind of environment where you do that or you don't do that. This is an allowed move. This is not allowed move. So it in a way you can think about this There are people who took it to even more extremes, like Spinoza.
What did he do?
Well, if you open his book Ethics, he modeled it exactly like Euclid's Elements, which is axioms, deductions, and it's talking about ethics. And supposedly, it's supposed to be clear because of that, but it's one of the more harder reads. It's very obscure in terms of that. It's very tough to read.
It sounds like you're trying to say, or that he was trying to stick reason inside of love.
Not just love. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated because he was so. Do you know about how his history went with?
I don't know anything about Spinoza.
Okay, I don't think we need to go into that then.
Okay, yeah, you'd have to be educating me first. That might take a while. Okay, so on the episode 2, which by the way, we will already have. In episode 1, we're focusing on love, but of course we have to talk about reason during that a little bit. So we would have already introduced people a little bit to the concept of reason and how it fits into the guiding philosophy of this program, how it fits into love, compassion, empathy, care, what's the other word? Kindness, non-zero sum, all that. Mm-hmm. So they'll already have a little bit of idea of what it is, like the framework of what reason is, what is it, how does it fit in everything else. And then episode 2.
If you think about all these words, they are words that are used in everyday life, but like in any kind of a context that tries to have some kind of a context within itself that uses these words in a semi-technical way that's specific to that setting that you have, then definitely some kind of an acquaintance with those words in order to create the contrast between what people in everyday life use and how that word is going to be intended in this particular context.
And that's why I led with the word love instead of, really, I could have said the word morality, how to behave with other people and yourself.
Yeah.
By the way, another word that I want to shove together with all the other ones I just said, love, kindness, empathy, care. I missed one. Benevolence. That's another concept that's worth using that has its own history for a long time, opposing from malevolence.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, reason. So one thing to do is, well, first of all, I want to say I would like to fit it in one episode. And again, episodes are, let's say, 45 minutes lecture, 15 minutes Q&A. I've already scheduled 2 episodes for self-care, one for emotions and one for boundaries. Mm-hmm. We could do that for a reason if we thought one wasn't enough. So for now, let us see what needs to fit in.
Right.
Then see if it needs 2 episodes or 1.
Okay. Well, I think that if we're talking about this from a pedagogical point of view, if you want to think about this as a course, not just as a few people having a conversation and then some people curious about this conversation putting in questions about the conversation, but actually learning, there has to be some form of an active participation from the people participating in this. Like whenever we think about this idea of pedagogy, the people have to take a kind of an ownership of what they're doing, that they're responsible in a way about building their own knowledge. And so I think incorporating that as a kind of a component for some of the work that might be done, not necessarily within those videos themselves. So maybe one episode could be sufficient. Maybe more than one is going to be required for any given topic. What doesn't fit could actually spill out in the form of assignments, if you will, that some people might want to do on their own. Certain questions that they can ponder, or certain ideas that they can investigate. So it can be a kind of an interactive situation where it's not necessarily only the content that's being produced, because eventually, if you want someone to learn, they have to um, uh, go the path. You're basically showing the path to them, but you're not guiding them by holding their hand and walking with them over that path.
Okay, I'm not really sure what you were advising me.
Well, I'm just commenting on that idea you said. If we're going to be thinking about the content that's going to be produced in whatever video format that this is going to take, it might not cover the whole thing. It doesn't need to
Oh,
cover the
definitely
whole thing.
won't cover everything. We basically have to decide how much shit we're cutting out, which kind of means we make a first guess of include these 20 things. Then we look at that and say, what's the least 5 important things, and cut those out. And then,
Right. And once they're cut out, if they're still important, they don't have to be just removed and put somewhere else. They could also be incorporated within the program itself in the form of what I just mentioned, some kind of activities that are not necessarily done within this context. It could be that the forum itself complements this by posing questions that might have originated from the video, and then produced as a kind of a discussion starter within the forum itself. And that itself can create a kind of a feedback loop to inform us about what's going on.
iReview says, do you think we need to increase literacy and respect for intellectuals in the Arab Muslim world? And then you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So let me make a comment about this. During the Ex-Muslims International meeting, the presentation I did on this past Sunday, somebody mentioned, after I described a big part of this program, asked, are people thirsty for this? My first reply instantly was, well, they're probably not, and we have to make them thirsty. And part of that is marketing. That's what marketing is. It's the whole task of making people thirsty.
Well, having you realize that you need a product that you didn't know that you need, probably.
And there's a lot of that. And you know what? Let's do one tiny example. Let me ask it like a question to you. Go back to, I don't know, 2000, the year 2000 or 2003, which is before iPhones. Would you have imagined, or if somebody, I don't know how to say this, if somebody gave you a poll and described this to you, and then said, would you buy this for X number of dollars? And you'd probably say, what for? What the fuck? I already got my phone. I don't need that. I remember when I was happy with my pager. Okay?
Yeah.
And then we only really knew that how amazing this is after using it for a little bit. What did it take for you to switch to like a smartphone? What made you decide to do that?
Well, I really like. See, the phone for me was, of course, as a kind of a communication device at the beginning, but I've always been trying to think about and follow new technology. So I did have a kind of an affinity or a propensity to actually, there is a new.
Were you an early adopter of the iPhone or smartphone?
Yeah, I didn't get an iPhone at the beginning. It was just some other generic Android.
Did you have what's it called? What was the thing with the big keyboard? QWERTY keyboard.
No, the BlackBerry.
BlackBerry. Did you do that?
No, I've never used it.
Did you do the earlier shit, the PDA, personal digital assistant?
No. So I did use a regular phone with buttons for quite a while. But the moment that I had the chance, I just bought that just single bar that doesn't have any buttons or anything of that sort on the thing.
So you kind of
Jump directly.
you kind of expected that this was going to be the next wave, one button.
Yeah. It's so I'm a big Star Trek fan.
Did they have those on there?
Well, many of the things, for example, if you think about the claims that are made right now about where flip phones come from, where iPads come from, you can actually see precedents of these. For the flip phone, you can see it in the original series. For the iPads and some other forms of laptops, you can see it in Star Trek: The Next Generation. So all of these have been produced in some way. So there is. I'm not going to say that these invented these devices, but they had a kind of an expectation that, well, if you're going to be going to the future, this is something that's going to be expected. And it exceeded by
Let me ask you,
bounds what was there.
what about social media? Were you early or late to social media? Like, let's say Facebook.
Okay.
I was really late.
I joined Facebook in 2009, and it had nothing to do with what I used it later on for. I was just basically.
That's kind of late. 2009.
Yeah.
I think I was later than that even.
So I was actually refusing to join that because my conception of this whole thing was, well, it seems that this is a kind of a lame thing where people are sharing photos, are writing just nonsensical things. I cooked this today or did something of that sort.
Yeah.
But the idea was this felt like a very good way of sharing photos and information with the family back in Jordan. Basically, that's how it started. But then it turned out to me that there's much more to it than that.
Yeah, and how long did that take?
That did take quite a while because for me, Facebook.
And maybe those things weren't really a thing yet in Facebook, like the Facebook groups.
Yeah. So if I want to actually put a date to some of these things, I think the actual Arab Atheist network was formed in 2010 on the Facebook. It existed before that as a forum, as a standalone forum on the internet until it was hacked. But the actual communities on Facebook started around 2010, and then took off after 2011 when the Arab Spring actually gave these things a lot of power. I actually remember right before the protests happened in Egypt in 2011. I had an Egyptian friend, a colleague. I was still then a student. And he said that there's something going on Facebook that's going to be big in Egypt. I really didn't take him seriously. I didn't think, well, Facebook, what is it going to do? But it actually played a very crucial role in the uprising that happened in Egypt. Because if you're thinking about everything that's controlling the environment over there, you want to have something that's still in that environment, but that's actually not part of that environment, that's independent, that's managed from the outside, that has the level of freedom that would
lets you organize.
Exactly.
Without a physical thing. I mean, technically you need your phone, but nothing else. It's your phone and the internet, like and wireless.
And this is still to this day something that's really playing a very important role in places like Iran, for example, where there's a whole clamping down on all sorts of ways that people can.
Let's bring this back to the point. We brought up the analogy of the phone technology, but the reason the phone technology was wanted was because it actually has inherent value that you noticed and felt, and even though you guessed a little bit about what it might be, it ended up being something else and even more powerful of how it was helpful to you. This stuff we're doing is the same thing, although maybe it's not as easily attained.
Yeah, but let me actually say something that's actually very relevant to this, because the phone thing if you go back to when Steve Jobs had that kind of famous presentation where he showed the iPhone for the first time and revealed it wasn't the first time that a phone like that was there, but it well, I'm not going to go into what Apple actually does and how it does it, but the idea then is that he did have a vision, but that vision did not materialize immediately. It was unfolding. So the first iPhone is not the same as the iPhone that we have right now. Same thing with what we have. When you're trying to promote a product that we have right now, there's a lot that needs still to be built. So we're not saying you need this because of so and so, because the product itself is still under development. It's going to be under a continuous development as long as it's there.
I wanted to put a banner up, but it's too long. Let me maybe put something on the screen then. Damn it. I didn't have this ready.
And of course, regarding the comment that a review had just said, that's obviously important, but there are issues in the Arab and Muslim world when it comes to literacy, and this is a whole thing for me that I find really frustrating because of basically what is known as diglossia. So Arabs in particular, I don't know about other Muslim countries how much of an issue this is, but for Arabs in particular, people who are speakers of Arabic, the fact that they don't actually write with the same language that they speak in everyday life produces a kind of a really big gap and prevents that kind of sophisticated thought that you would have unless you have gone through the schooling system. And even then, you're not really speaking and writing the way, or speaking or using the way that you're going to be writing or reading. And so there is a gap that's really going to be unbridgeable unless we address this issue of language. So it's not about literacy. People can be literate. It's just that the gap or the amount of distance that you have to cover in Arabic compared to what you're doing in English is significantly larger before you can start producing and thinking independently within that language.
Well, when our review is talking about literacy, are they talking about reading and writing?
Well, it's not, once you have the ability to read and write, then you can start engaging with intellectual endeavors. If you're just using speech, that's going to limit you a lot.
Yeah, but speech, these videos can create the thirst.
Yeah, but the question I think that is posed here is something that is not specifically talking about these videos. It's talking about literacy in general.
Yeah, they're talking about how is anyone going to even want to come to this? And that's what I'm saying. How we have to create thirst. One way to create thirst is get to them through video, even if they don't like reading and writing. Yeah, and then through the videos, they develop a thirst for reading and writing.
Possibly, but still, I think the question was a little bit broader than that.
I don't know what question you're talking about.
The question on the screen is broader than that, and it's addressing something that's not specifically addressing our videos.
Yeah, I think the reason they brought it up was the thing I'm saying.
Yeah,
and even if not, I care more about the thing I'm saying, since I don't even understand what they're saying then. Because what came up was, if people are not thirsty, this is not going to work. And I'm combating that by saying we have to make them thirsty. And if they're not thirsty for reading and writing, then video can help with that.
Well, here's what I claim. I claim that there is a thirst. It's not that there isn't a thirst. There is a thirst. It's just undirected, or it's not. It probably needs some guidance or some way to invest it. Maybe it's not as much of a thirst as it should be, but I think it's there.
So, kind of a random list of items. Man, how can I do this in a way where, God damn it, everything's getting cut off. How about I do this? Cheating. And I guess I could do this. Oh, damn it. Okay.
Well, you can actually move more than one of these, the ones on the left, but that's fine.
So I don't know how much needs to be explained. You know, I feel like talking about contradictions is fucking obvious, and I feel like I'm wasting people's time on things they already know. But then I notice some people actually get it wrong and misunderstand it.
Well, here's the thing about contradictions. When you're thinking about a contradiction, you can think about something that's glaringly clear, and there is something that's contradicting something else in a way that you can directly point out to. But in real life, what happens is, whether it's about contradictions or any of the other so-called fallacies, whether logical or extra logical fallacies, people don't realize that they have committed them unless they actually go through a series of analysis in order to point it out. It might be obvious to someone else when you're doing it. You're looking, well, there's a specific contradiction here. This point here does not fit with this point, and you can point it out, and depending on how flexible the other person is, they might realize this and concede, yeah, I committed a contradiction there, I'm going to backtrack and fix it. But the problem then gets complicated if they think that whatever claim that they're making is so existentially important that they're going to basically die on that hill and not concede that there is a contradiction. So I think that's the main problem that appears there. It's not that people say, oh, we don't realize that there's such a thing as contradictions and we should avoid them. Oh, they do realize that. It's that they very often coach this within this kind of complicated matrix that's going to hide the contradiction or to elevate the contradiction into some other level that makes it appear like something else. Let me give you an example.
I was focused on something I think you're not talking about. I was basically asking, should we include this or not? Is it too obvious? I think by all the talking you're doing, you're implying, yes, we should teach it because people get it wrong.
Well, yes, we should teach it, but not in the direct way that you would think about it if you're starting a course in logic. Oh, we have these laws that we have inherited from Aristotle. These are the laws of formal logic, and one of them is the identity law.
I wouldn't look at those at all. I wouldn't use those at all.
But when you're thinking about it from that very basic perspective, that's basically how it gets introduced in a course on logic, which might give the impression that this is actually what we're trying to do. What I'm saying is that contradiction slips into conversations in more subtle ways, and sometimes it is there and being defended in a way that's not easy to combat with just pointing it out.
I like the way physicists talk about contradictions, which is to say there are no contradictions in reality, in nature. So if we see a contradiction, that implies a flaw in our knowledge rather than a contradiction in nature. And the way this comes up, and it came up recently actually on this podcast. I say recently, but it was the first episode of the podcast. So maybe that's 2 years now. I don't remember the context, but it was something like there's a physics theory, there was an experiment, I don't remember the details, but I remember another example that was being discussed at the time. You know the Leaning Tower of Pisa?
Okay.
And there, I was watching this episode on History Channel about it, and they use flowery language there. Okay, it's really entertainment, edutainment, with more entertainment than education, because they're saying really
Yeah.
dumb things.
The
Said,
the History Channel and National Geographic recently. I'm not sure if they deserve their.
well, this is like 15 years ago. I don't know. So what happened was they described that a team built a computer model of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and in the computer model, it kept falling. It wouldn't stand. And the speaker said that the building literally defies the laws of physics or nature. That's the wrong conclusion. The correct conclusion is, yes, there is a contradiction between that computer model and nature, but where you would lead with this is the computer model is wrong, not nature. Like, the building is not defying the laws of nature. It's defying our current understanding of it in that computer model, which itself is fallible and wrong.
Well, I think there are a couple of things I might have said. I feel that we have had this conversation before, but I think, first of all, like you said, this is more edutainment than it is actually education. So probably the use of hyperbolic language is more on.
Yeah, but then I found out people actually think it, because someone on my podcast basically said the same thing in a different context, was trying to say that means the nature is wrong, has a contradiction or something like that.
Right. So David Hume has a really nice way of approaching this idea of miracles and things that defy the laws of nature, which is basically to weigh two different options. Like, for example, something like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Is it actually the case? Which one is more reasonable, to think that something has happened here that's a miracle, or to think that there is some other way of explaining it? So just weighing the two and trying to look at which one is going to be more reasonable than not should usually eliminate anything that can even be considered to be a violation of laws of nature. But going back to the actual point itself, while this is important and is definitely something that does come up in conversations with people making claims within religion that pertain to the physical world, within the broader context, maybe it's not going to be as useful, because when in our human world, we're not really engaging with the physical world as much in that sense. And so the non-contradiction would then boil down to what we're doing in debates, in conversations, rather than in engagement with nature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you're basically just saying it also applies to non-nature. And yes, of course, like it applies to even like the concept of slavery and why the concept is wrong. And the way you do it is, and maybe we now have to talk about problem framing. Every idea can be seen as a intended solution to a problem. You can see slavery that way. And when you try to figure out what is the problem that slavery is trying to solve, and then you check to see that the idea actually solves it or not, what you find is a contradiction. And that's what's revealing that slavery doesn't solve the problem it's intended to solve. And none of that is comparing to nature or like finding any empirical evidence.
Yeah.
Not just nature. I mean, that's one thing too. Maybe what people don't realize is the people that do have some respect for the concept of contradiction, maybe they do restrict it to hard sciences only, and they don't know how to think about contradictions in morality. So that is something we would have to teach.
I mean, you can think about both. Some people don't actually realize about the non-contradiction in natural science. At least it's not something that gets explicitly outlined when you're approaching science in general. And this kind of situation, like the example you mentioned, is not something that obviously comes up whenever you're thinking about approaching a practical problem. It's something that's a little bit more subtle than something that's explicit.
So already in trying to explain number one, non-contradiction, I already had to talk about this. So maybe this is a higher order problem. Higher order. Oh, fuck. Bastards. Bastards. All right. And by the way, problem framing, the other terms that make sense here for people to understand: goal, purpose. There's a couple of others. Actually, question. And I know there's at least one or two others. I'll fill them in later, I guess. These are all saying the same thing. Functional standard is it seems like just a language issue. People get lost in semantic confusion, and the functional standard concept prevents or works to prevent that confusion. And the way it always comes up in discussions, and I have this problem with AIs all the goddamn fucking time. You know, because they're getting their information from people, and 99% of the people do this wrong. So they're doing it wrong. You know, and the way it always comes up is, I think they're biased for this, okay? Like, I'll say something like, first of all, the AI will bring up something like intuition to explain something that I did. Hey, you human, you did X. That's called intuition. So the AI is bringing up the concept of intuition. So then I ask, do you have something similar to intuition? And then the AI will describe it. It's something about induction or whatever. Maybe not induction, but Bayes' theorem. And then I say, okay, so, and in their answer, when they're answering, do they have something similar to intuition? They also have a disclaimer, either right at the front, usually at the front, or at the back, but it's unlike humans. They always want to say, but it's unlike humans, but it's unlike humans. So then I'll ask, how is it unlike humans? And then they won't give an answer that is functional. They'll give an answer like, oh, well, the way it started through the way it was born is different, and the hardware it runs on is different. And then I'll ask, tell me why that matters. And they can't come up with an answer because it doesn't fucking matter. What fucking matters is the function. Because because when I ask, do you have something like intuition? Are you able to do what we're doing? I'm not asking how you got it or what hardware it's running on. That's not part of the question. So you should just answer, I do have the functional capacity or I don't, regardless of what hardware it's running on.
I personally don't actually know if we can map our faculties, if we can call these faculties, in a kind of a one-to-one correspondence with what AI does. Because after all, if you're thinking about AI as a large language model that thinks about what's the next word that's supposed to be coming next in terms of the most probable word that would be coming next, and that's how it builds its ideas. Is that a way that we can use in order to build something analogous to how we do things? I don't know. I'm not.
Well, that's like saying we haven't defined intuition yet, and I agree with that. I don't know. I don't fully know what our intuition is, how it works. I have a rudimentary understanding of it, and when we compare that rudimentary understanding of human intuition to the rudimentary understanding the AI has of his thing, we get the same answer. Now, it could be mine is far superior and because of elements I haven't described, and so we can't make a good comparison between his and mine. But with the current theories we have of what we have, they look the same. And the AI can't point out a difference.
Right. So I can there are certain things that when trying to solve problems, like people who are really experts, we're talking about Nobel Prize level experts, they have a kind of a faculty that's best called intuition, for a lack of a better word. You would tell them a problem and they would immediately know if it's going to be right or wrong without having to go through the process of actually doing a calculation or going through the steps that you would normally do.
But they can if asked.
Yeah. So what is it that they're doing? Are they doing the calculation? No. They have developed this kind of ability to immediately distinguish the structure and have that kind of intuitive understanding of what's going on, and it's usually spot on. Now, I don't have this kind of thing, at least not for the really big problems that matter, but I do have it for smaller problems. If a student comes to me with a certain idea, I can immediately tell them what's wrong with it without having to go through the process. I can tell them where to look for this in order to realize what I realized. But I know that it can develop at very high levels. Is that something that AI can do or have something analogous to it? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
So anyway, back to the point of functional standard, and where it might fit hierarchy-wise. Does it seem to you, and I'm asking your intuition, Usama's intuition, do you think functional standard is higher order than non-contradiction and problem framing, or is it equal? So here's another way to ask the question. Go ahead.
I think it the way that you put it at the beginning as a kind of an on equal footing, maybe for at least for the time being, seems to be sensible. It's not the same kind of it's a kind of approaching a different aspect of how people approach a discourse, and so it might seem reasonable for the time being to put it separately.
Let me ask you, does this only apply to like an English language, or does it also apply? Functional standard, I think, applies everywhere else too. I think it applies in math, it applies in physics. Like, so in physics, for example, if you notice two equations and different letters in the equations, that does not mean they are different equations. They could have just used different labels. And the way you would know is like functional standard concept. What is that thing doing? If it's doing this, if these two things are doing the exact same thing, then you should ignore that they have different labels. They are the same thing.
Right. But when it comes to physics, there is a more precise way of formulating things, because if you're talking about this as an equation, you can start with something very simple. You can say 2x equals 5. Well, this is the same thing as saying that x is equal to 5 over 2. This is the same equation. It's just reorganized.
So using this concept, functional standard, you're able to say they are the same equation.
Yeah, but when it comes to language, I think there is a completely different way of thinking about this, because after all, language does not have that kind of universal acceptance where you can say any kind of a concatenation of sounds to make a word is something that everybody's going to agree this means that. You cannot say this. So there's a kind of a subjective and a kind of a standard that really depends on consensus, and consensus within a certain group, so that it's a little bit hard to use that analogy from physics.
Well, what this does, the functional standard concept does, is allow two people who don't have a consensus on the meaning of a word to reach consensus on the meaning.
Okay, just give me 1 second. There's something I need to take care of here.
No problem. Let me review the next ones and see where things fit. I got this one from you. Ends do not justify the means. I mean, I already knew it, but noticing that it's important for here.
Okay. Yes.
So non-contradiction theoretically, I mean, first of all, it applies everywhere. I can't imagine a scenario where you wouldn't care about contradictions. So it's like completely universal. And then problem framing, I think, is also the same thing. Looking at an idea and saying, we don't need to look at what problem it's intended to solve. We can just ignore that completely. I don't think that makes sense. Although people might come back by saying, okay, say I have an intuition. First of all, it's not in words. How the hell can you deal with, does it apply here? Well, yes. Every intuition is an idea also, an explicit idea. And yes, it's intended to solve a problem. You might not know what it is right now. That's how intuitions work. But you can expose that. And that's actually part of the process of turning an intuition into explicit knowledge. I guess intuition needs to be clearly in here.
Yeah, the problem with intuition is that it's not as reliable as any other form of knowledge. Intuition can be wrong.
All of them can be, though.
Yeah, but intuition in particular. So if you look at our surroundings and you look at the Earth, you would say my intuition, from what I'm seeing, the Earth is flat. You actually would have to convince me with evidence that, well, the Earth is round and it doesn't have.
Does your intuition today still say that? That's an important question. Your intuition doesn't say that.
If I look outside, I don't see anything that tells me that the Earth is round. It's not something that we might think, oh, this is a very trivial thing. This is actually not a trivial thing. The fact that people for centuries thought that the Earth is flat is not coming from nothing. It's something that our intuition, even with the motion of the stars and so on, can be explained. So I'm not saying that people didn't realize that. On the contrary, you can actually have precedents in Greece, and I mentioned that before. They actually did calculations and figured out the size of the Earth. Later on, Muslim astronomers also continued on this and even made more precise calculations. But for the lay people, for thousands of years, until today, it's for someone who hasn't thought about it, it's not something that you can intuitively see.
Yeah.
So intuition can be wrong, and intuition can be something that's really hard to.
So maybe we do the general thing. You have to start with fallibility, which is the way I started. I wrote a science article, which is just describing reason. And I started with fallibility. That's what Socrates started with. That's what Popper starts with. I don't think physicists say it up front, but I think it is core. At least today, maybe not 400 years ago. Do you think Newton understood fallibility very well?
I wouldn't
Did he
say
think
so.
his? Go ahead.
I wouldn't say so, but again, I'm not a historian of science to have dealt with what's kind of because here's the thing. When we would learn physics today, you start from the freshman physics, going through the curriculum, we're not really learning what those people went through. We're learning the developments that came afterwards that are built on them. So, for example, you learn about Einstein's theory of relativity. You don't actually go and take the papers that Einstein wrote and study them. So you don't really
Which
know
I
what
think is wrong, by the way.
Not
We should be
necessarily.
teaching people how to think, how the physicists were thinking, how they thought, and the thought methods they had that led them to their conclusion, rather than here's the conclusion.
Maybe if you're teaching methodology, but not necessarily the actual content itself.
And then there
Because
should be at least a class on that for physicists, right? And there isn't.
there isn't, and its need as a kind of a separate discipline is a little bit debatable, because eventually you are going to be teaching a specific philosophy of methodology rather than some kind of a well-defined accepted theory.
Well, Richard Feynman thought that he in his speech, 1974 Caltech commencement speech, towards the end, he said that he was apologizing for physicists, all of them. He says, I apologize basically for not directly teaching the scientific approach and instead teaching by, he used the word osmosis.
Why did he not do that? He was at the pinnacle of his career, and he has had
Let
a
me
lot.
put that question back on you. You tell me, why didn't he?
Because there is no direct requirement for you to actually know a lot of methodology in order to do the science. The thing is, when you're looking at something like physics or any kind of science, because of the fact that it's a conversation with nature, nature dictates a lot of what's happening. So if you make a mistake, it's not like, oh, I made a mistake and it's going to go unnoticed because there's no self-correcting mechanism. No, nature is going to hit you on the head and it's going to tell you you made a mistake. So the idea of the methodology is something that's implicit in the way that you interact with nature, far less than something that you actually need to learn as a skill. I'm not saying that there is no need for methodology or that it's not there. It is definitely there, but it's far less implicit than people seem to think in the actual practice of science.
Okay, so fallibility, non-contradiction, problem framing, functional standard. I have intuition here. I want to explain tradition real quick. I don't know that I've talked to you about this ever. It's the concept that you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And it's to say the idea that if I invented an idea just now, and I think it's amazing, but it's in competition with an idea that's been developing for 1,000 years all around the world, many generations, many people.
For example, flat Earth.
Yeah, that's one. Mm-hmm. Another example, the wheel. Another example, the concept of fallibility. You don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Now, if the bathwater is just bathwater, like the flat Earth theory, then you should throw it all out. But again, you would do it individually. You would make sure that each piece you're throwing out is actually bad.
No, I think, let me just say something about flat Earth. Flat Earth is not being thrown away as a concept. Like any kind of scientific theory, it gets subsumed within the next iteration that's actually correct or closer to the truth. So when we say that flat Earth is wrong, it's flat Earth as an infinite plane that has no curvature at all. What's correct here is that you have a really big sphere that has a radius of curvature that is huge, so much so that it appears flat. So
even on the small scale, it's not flat. We got mountains and hills and.
Well, that's different. These are creases on the flat surface of a circle or a sphere. So what's happening here is that it does appear flat because at the level that you're looking at, it is flat. When you zoom out and you look at the size, you realize then that it appeared flat to you because you're so small and so close to it.
So the point of talking about tradition is to say, for someone to think their brand new idea is better than tradition, well, first of all, you have to recognize that that's what you're doing. You're saying your brand new idea is better than rivals, which might be thousands of years old. And recognizing that means, okay, your idea should have clear information exposing the flaws in the rivals. Yeah. Now, sometimes a theory actually implies flaws in other rivals without directly stating it, but you can come up with the implications by thinking through the example. Hold on, I'm trying to shut my phone up. Where was I going with this? Trying to understand the role of tradition. So let me say this. There's a phenomenon in America, in probably all or most of the West. I don't know if it exists everywhere else. Maybe it is spreading everywhere else too, through American culture and Western culture. It's the idea that new is automatically better than old. And the way it comes out is things like, I remember talking with someone about psychiatry, and I was talking about an idea that came out in a book in the 1950s. And when they found out that it was from the 1950s, they said, oh, we got newer books now. You can throw that away now, without even looking at what the idea is. That is throwing out the baby with the bathwater. That is saying your idea you came up with just now is better than tradition that was developed over a long period. Lots of people were criticizing the idea, and it survived. Now, of course, it could be a flat Earth theory that survived in those little circles of people who are not really doing any critical evaluation. It survives in a circle of in an echo chamber. But that's also why you don't want to be in an echo chamber. Intuition is a type of tradition. Intuition, some of it is things that you learned from your parents without learning it in words from your parents. Yeah. And from your society. And so we have intuitions that have been building up over generations. And maybe a lot of that, or very little of it, was being transferred by words. It's being transferred in a different way. Okay. I guess if
can you give me a second? I'm going to run very quickly, do something.
Okay, go ahead. Yep. All right, let's look if we have any comments. No comments. And one person here. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, we have some comments. The channel needs more book reviews. We don't have any book reviews on this. Oh, the channel in general. I have a podcast on this channel, and soon we are doing a book review of this book. Let me put that on the screen bigger. This book right here, Born a Burden, Breaking Free from Islam, Tradition, and Silence by Nashuz. That's a pen name. I'm going to be reading this book, and I'm going to have Nashuz on the show, and we'll be doing a book review. But it's not Deconstructing Islam, it's the podcast. And I guess maybe we should be doing books on this show. Mulahid al-Islam. Toba Toba, Astaghfirullah. I believe in Allah's intelligence, aka AI. Yeah, Zali movie. Intuition is when you get tuition from an Indian. I love reading a joke and not knowing the last part of the joke when you start reading from the beginning. You laugh in the middle of it. All right, back to this. Yeah, maybe this should be over here. Hey, what's up?
Okay.
Okay, I thought to move something. After problem framing, or maybe within it, maybe it's like this: optimism. And I don't mean like the common definition people know. I mean a very specific one. It's the idea that all problems are solvable, and that what it takes to solve a problem is the requisite knowledge, and that anyone can gain that knowledge.
That's a David Deutsch idea par excellence.
Yeah, it's really cool. Although I want to talk about, I want to solve this before we get to the episode, the real episode that we're gonna do. I think the way people would push back on this is to say that we're saying that you can get out of anything. Like, I'm going to give two examples. One is realistic and now and happening to a lot of people. The other one is hypothetical and hasn't happened yet. The hypothetical hasn't happened yet is the Walking Dead scenario, apocalypse. Billions of people have died. The entire infrastructure is gone. There's no government, no police. Nothing's functioning. You know, we're kind of living like it was before civilization in some ways. But in other ways, not really, because we have, I mean, in the show, there was little nooks and crannies where they were rebuilding civilization. That wouldn't have happened a long time ago. But the point is, so people, I think, would come back and say, wait, so you're saying you could solve that problem? Like you're in that Walking Dead scenario and you can like get your life back or something. That is not what we're saying. Another way people get confused is they say, oh, so you're saying you can change anything in yourself to anything else? Well, no, that's not what we're saying. By the way, a consequence of optimism is, you know, whatever feature in myself that I, let's say, don't like it and I want it to be different, I have the ability to change it. And again, the confusion that people have often when they hear that is, oh, so you're saying you can change yourself to anything that you just can imagine. Like, for example, tomorrow I want to be as smart as Einstein and come up with the next theory that beats Einstein's theory. That is not what we're saying. It's the better way to see it is I can reach a better state tomorrow than I am in today. Iterative improvement. You can't make a leap of 1,000 steps in one step. If you think of the analogy of somebody walking upstairs, you can go up one step at a time. You could go up 2 steps at a time. You could, if you're pretty agile and athletic, you could do 3 and 4 steps at a time. You can't do 15 steps at a time. You can't do 1,000 steps at a time. So the idea that problems are solvable is to say that, yeah, if you gain the knowledge, then you can solve it, but it takes an immense effort to gain that knowledge.
Yeah, let me say why problems are solvable.
Okay.
Okay, so there are 2 things that I wanted to say about this, but the first one is, if you believe that a problem has been caused, say, by some kind of a metaphysical intervention, like a god interfering with something that's completely outside of this world, then definitely your point of view means that there are certain things that cannot be solved because the problem is not a physical problem. When you're saying that a problem is physical, let's say is cancer curable in principle? Today, we don't have a universal cure for cancer. We have a lot of things that can attack cancer and address the issue, but we don't have a universal cure. The thing here is that cancer has to do with mutations that are happening within a certain region in the body that then propagate and affect the rest of the body. So the mechanism that is happening here is physical. And if it's physical, it means that it's a physical problem that can be addressed within physical means. And that's why anything that's going to be following these rules that initiated the original problem should be the same rules that would resolve the problem in the first place. So that understanding that the problem itself is physical means immediately that whatever laws, whatever rules that this problem has followed in order to develop in the first place are still there and are usable in order to decompose it. So that's the first point I wanted to say. The second point, and that's not something that David Deutsch addresses as far as I know. I'm not really
I don't recall
his ideas, but there is another thinker, Steve Pinker, who has a really who is accused of being an over-optimist, and he approaches things about modernity in a slightly different way. He has a book called The Better Angels of... He quotes he uses a title that I think Lincoln said once. Anyway, The Better Angel of Our Nature, or something like that. So he looks at statistics of crime, of killing, of well-being throughout the 20th century. And if you look at the trends, despite all that's happening in the news, you actually see that things are improving. In a way, this is not showing you that things are getting better like some kind of a magical thing, but it's actually showing that once we have now the ability to understand the underlying physical aspects of how things work, we now have demonstrated in a statistically measurable way that we do actually have a way of improving things, that things can in principle improve, whether it's at the personal level or at the level of society or civilization, that this is something that is something that we can control.
Make sure you say those things. Should I add something right now to the outline to make sure we talk about that, or?
I don't know. I'm just. I mean, I'm reacting to the points that you're presenting.
Okay. Well, if you think it's relevant, then I should add it. That's what I've been doing here to try to make sure we, this is like the outline we want to follow when we do the episode. So if you think it's relevant to add, then I should add it now. Do you think it's already included in all of this and all the discussion we already did, or it needs to be added?
Well, for me, this is a kind of a right now, optimism is a kind of a keyword that's going to connect in my mind to the things I just said anyway. So if you want to add something,
so you're saying it would come up anyway during the discussion?
Yeah, once people talk about optimism, that's what I usually...
Okay, so it's going to come up. And for me, I think these things would naturally come up too. I was not intending to say the things that I said, but they always come up, like the change yourself concept. Let's keep going. And by the way, we're at 1:30 now. We got to end soon. Mm-hmm. And maybe we'll do another episode to keep planning this. And maybe that tells us we're going to need 2 episodes.
I don't know, maybe. But here's the thing. Sometimes with the planning process, you end up groping around and trying to find your way through some kind of an argument, which is not necessarily reflective of the finished product. The finished product sometimes looks
definitely not. Yeah, shorter because we already figured out a lot of things. Yeah, I want to remind everyone too, when we do the first episode of each of these episodes we're planning, that's just iteration 1. There will be the following year, again and again and again. And theoretically, 20 is, if Usama and I have 20 years, we're doing it for 20 years. Yeah. I just saying 20. Maybe we want to retire in 20. So I'll be 67, and we'll hand over the baton to the next group of people who probably went through our program, right? And then they'll be teaching it, and they should be making improvements. This shouldn't be anything that becomes in stone, kind of like, imagine people coming through this, we've gotten this sentiment a little bit already that, we know a lot, and, people think maybe they can't improve on what we're doing. Yes, you can. You will find improvements. Basically, if you get to our level, you're going to be standing our soldiers on our shoulders and seeing further than we did. And so you will have improvements to the episode. So then when you're teaching it, it'll be better than what we're doing. And then maybe in the year 2500, and this is still going on, it's going to be that much better.
No, well, what I would want for the year 2500 is for people to have actually gone beyond that initial level or initial stage of trying to find a way to resolve this, and have already settled into something that is self-sustaining, self-propelling. I mean,
this is self-propelling.
Yeah, but I'm talking about something that gets so ingrained into how people think that you don't actually have to intentionally do it in a way.
That's like saying that sounds exactly like what happens in physics, where I remember all my years in physics, and no one mentioned fallibility, no one mentioned contradictions, but it's all in there. And that is what we're learning, even if it's not being said in words. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. Let me make a comparison between that and language. People speak language, and then grammarians come, and then they start extracting laws from something that already exists. That doesn't mean that the grammarians have invented these rules. They're just observing these rules and codifying them and
putting them. Let me add further.
Yeah.
Let me add another element to that. And I heard this from Noam Chomsky about vocabulary, definitions, the dictionary. People made words and used them orally, and then later people decided to write them down into a dictionary, similar to the grammarians writing down grammar. And Noam Chomsky explains about that, just like what you explained. I think that's what you explained, that the words in the dictionary and their definitions, it's not accurate. It's an approximation. What is accurate is actually what's in the heads of all the people using those words. And that changes over time and across places.
Yeah, true.
We use words differently. And then really it comes down to, what did that specific guy mean by that specific word in that specific sentence? Mm-hmm. Rather than doing a mishmash of like, oh, well, he's used the word free will, therefore this must have been what he meant because this is what other people say it means. Yeah. That helps a little bit. You can start working that way, but then it still comes down to, what did he mean by that word in that sentence, in that context of that essay?
I especially have a beef with the word God because I don't know what people mean by it.
Yeah. Especially when I hear, like, when somebody says, well, I'm not sure if there's a God or not. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's start pinning it down then. What do you mean by God? And then exactly. I hear back, well, I'm not putting a definition on it. You're saying it might exist, but also no definition. What the hell are we saying then?
Exactly. Exactly. That's one of the core problems there.
Yeah. Which means, and that's not, I wonder if any of this stuff here tries to combat that issue. And if not, we got to add something like God example. And someone saying,
when I was going to bring an example about the non-contradiction, God was actually one of the biggest issues, especially the monotheistic God, because there have been so many different things lumped into that entity that it no longer means anything specific. Anybody can say the word God and they would mean
Yeah,
all
like they
sorts
can
of
say,
things.
you use this example, energy.
Yeah, energy, love. It's the big bearded guy
Love.
in the sky. It's the guy who's going to. So
But I think
it's
that if somebody says God is love, I think they're using it metaphorically completely, right?
not necessarily. Some people might actually mean it more literally than others, but
Oh shit.
but especially if you look at the way that love is actually incorporated in Christianity, when they're saying that God loves you and then love becomes part of it. There's also the issue of good and how they try to resolve this idea. When God says to you, do something, does that mean that you're doing it because God is saying it, or are you doing it because it's correct or it's right? And then they say, well, there's no difference because God is good. God is goodness. Well,
Well, isn't
that
that where the word came from too? God came from
yeah,
good.
yeah, at least the English word. I don't know if there's any other language that has the same kind of aspect, because if you look at other languages, you see that uh, well
Where
the
did the
many of
word Allah come from? Not the word good. What
no,
did it come?
no.
Where it
Actually,
came from? Evil, or like
it's a very common Semitic root that has been used way before Islam. The word El, for example, that has been used by the Jews. It appears in other places like Ugaritic culture. That's mainly in the Syrian desert slash the Syrian coast. And so it predates all that, and it appears in all sorts of guises. So
okay. Okay. Now this concept or this example we just gave, and how we're saying it doesn't make sense. Where does it fit in all of the stuff we've already talked about? Would you say it's maybe
I don't
in
think
the
it fits in
functional
any
standard
specific.
part?
I think it straddles multiple things at the same time.
Really?
It's not. Yeah,
Would you
yeah.
say it's a semantics issue too?
That
Because
too.
these people are saying X exists, and then when we ask them what is X, oh, I'm not defining that.
Well, like I said, I think it straddles multiple things. It has issues that are related to that. It has issues that are related to falsifiability. It has issues related to contradiction. So
What
it's
problem is
really,
this God idea trying to solve?
yeah. Well,
You
that's
can't
actually
pinpoint.
that's an excellent way of putting it, because the idea of God is supposed to be, at least in the monotheistic mindset, is supposed to be the solution of everything. This
I've
might
heard them
sound,
say that God solves
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And then I
So
say, how? Show me how. How do we do it in real life?
right. So the main motto that Islamic the Muslim Brotherhood uses is Islam is the solution. The solution to what? Islam is the solution. Period.
All the problems.
Yeah, everything that you have, anything that you
Okay,
can come up
then
with.
we have to go to the next step. Okay, look. Abstracts need concretes. The idea that God solves everything is an abstract idea. In order to understand that idea and apply it in real life, you need to have lots of concrete examples you've used to apply the abstract idea in that example, and many others, because that's what it comes down to. All abstract ideas are useless unless you can apply them in a concrete. So then I would ask them, what concrete life decision can you use this abstract idea in? The idea being God solves everything. So show me how that works. And then they can't.
Well,
Right?
they're going to claim that they can.
No,
That's their,
I want to see them do it.
yeah, and they're going to claim that they can, and then that's going to lead you to things like looking up for looking up contradictions in what they're trying to claim, and how that actually is going to boil down to, oh, this really is a kind of an illusion that you're presenting as a solution of the problem, when in fact it involves this or that contradiction at that particular point or multiple points.
So you're saying they would actually try and give a concrete example?
Oh yeah,
and they'll fail.
Yeah, most definitely. So those people who are raising that motto that Islam is the solution, they're not saying it as a kind of an empty motto. They would be presenting you with actual practical solutions. It's just that these solutions, when you look at them in reality, they're going to have contradictions. I'm not saying that they're going to be completely contradictory, and somehow these people are able to live with that contradiction, but they are going to involve some ultimate contradiction that might or might not be the crux of the entire argument that they're presenting.
Okay. In order to have falsifiability, we need a problem framing. So maybe I should have wrote falsifiability here as a sub point of problem framing. If I do that, I also had falsifiability under guesses and criticism. I don't know where to put this. You know, what we do in the hard sciences is we hypothesize something that explains some phenomenon, and then we use criticism to rule out our hypotheses. And some of that criticism is, you know, actually checking against nature. Where should that go?
So this is having a, if I want to imagine this is a kind of a Venn diagram, there is an overlap, but it's not a perfect overlap that you can say one of them is a subset of the other. So you might have falsifiability appear under both of these as a kind of shared idea that appears in both cases, but to forcibly put guesses and criticism under a problem framing, then you might as well just call the whole thing problem framing, because then you can put everything under that.
Well, that's also why I was thinking that at least a few of these will be equal importance, and neither are under the others. None of them are under the others. This is difficult.
This is difficult because you're trying to approach a whole discipline and reduce it into a single, I don't know, 1 hour, 2 hour video. Or
I guess part of what we need to explain is that, well, basically what you just said, if you put it in a Venn diagram, it's not exactly one-to-one. Something like that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this one. So I've always known the ends do not justify the means, but I remember when you brought it up during one of our, I don't know, one or two, I remember it came up 3 times. After you brought it up one time, and you made me realize the connection to what we were discussing. And then
I don't remember. I do remember the discussion, but I don't remember the context.
Me neither. But I remember 2 other times after that, it came up again in my mind, but because you put it in there, again, even though I already know that concept from the past, I just didn't connect it to the things we were doing at the time. Where could this fit?
Well, this is a kind of it tends to be a kind of an ethical principle. So I am wondering if this is belonging in this module or the previous one.
It's a logical thing too. Yes, it is. Of course, we know it's connected to morality, but it's a logic thing too. Or maybe the idea is to try to fit it in the first episode, and if it fits well, don't mention it here.
If I want to think about this from the point of view of outside of ethics, and I think about Aristotelian teleology, like you look at what things are, and these things are supposed to have a telos, a purpose, or something that they're going to be serving, an end. And so in that case, whatever means that's going to be followed in order to satisfy that is going to be whatever that object is going to follow. And in that case, you might cast doubt on whether it's actually, I don't know.
I mean, one thing to say is, the first 8 items is what reason is, and it's not talking. It's not addressing what reason isn't. But then these 2 items is describing what reason isn't. And I put one on here that I didn't say to you yet, but there's a whole swath of people who think that reason works by weighing evidence and judging theories by probability of being true. And I'm not exactly sure that's worth talking about in here, but maybe it is. I noticed it came up in the essay I wrote to help people stop fearing hell. I wrote 2 essays. The first one was explaining why it's impossible, but that doesn't help the people who think in terms of probability of theories being true, because what they think is, oh yeah, I have all the logic and I understand why hell is wrong or Islam is not true. But they still have this idea of, well, I could be wrong and there's a small chance that I cannot escape that Islam is true and hell is real and I'm going to go to hell. And so in that scenario, you can't just talk about why hell is impossible. You have to directly deal with their bad logic about thinking that it's okay or that it's meaningful to judge theories by probability. So I think it's important because it's dealing with the hell issue that some people have. Yeah, and again, this is a what reason isn't.
I'm not sure if the heading that you put there directly explains the idea that you just talked about.
This is just notes, of course not. This just helps me remember what to say. Yes, it is. People are using Pascal's wager when they're doing that. Right? What's Pascal's wager?
Yeah, well, you go to the grave thinking, well, maybe God exists, maybe he doesn't exist, so I'm going to believe that God is real because that's going to be the safest bet. If he doesn't exist...
Except that's saying it's possible I'm wrong, but without trying to put probabilities on any of it.
I mean, yeah, some people say it's a 50-50, but it's not really 50-50. If you really want to think about it and really go down into the details, even at the level of saying, which God are you talking about? Is it the Christian God? Is it the Muslim God? Even then, you're going to start seeing the probabilities bifurcating, and instead of talking about a 50-50, it becomes something much more complicated. But there are so many other factors that can be placed into this. So if it's a wager in the sense that you're going to go doing some gambling, you're really playing with odds that you don't know. And that's putting aside all the rational aspects that you can talk about, which would refute the very idea. But even if you're doing it as a kind of a wager, you're basically gambling with unknown probabilities or
I
very
I
complicated.
review I review gave feedback on what we might should include. They say reason is not empiricism. That might be worth talking about because I think it combats the phenomena we have where people think science only applies to empirical theories. Or let me say it this way, that you can only judge theories in the hard sciences by empirical evidence, ignoring all the philosophy that goes in it. David Deutsch explained that the vast majority of scientific theories are refuted by philosophical criticism, not empirical criticism.
But I think a review is also adding a different component, saying that reason is a kind of bigger sphere that is not only confined to empiricism, that there's something more to it. I think that's what they mean.
Which is approximately what I was saying, right?
To some extent, yeah.
You think it's worth saying?
Yeah, but we have, if we're trying to do this as a kind of a reasonable 1/2 episodes worth of talking about things, this is going to become.
Yeah, I got it though. I might have solved it. If we break it up into 2 episodes, episode 1 is here's what reason is. Episode 2 is the contrast. Here's what reason isn't. And you know, I say this all the time. In order to understand an idea well, you got to understand, contrast it against the ideas it's competing with.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe that would be 2 episodes.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know if there's going to be a kind of an arbitrary line that's going to cut through the list or a rearrangement of the list in order to.
Well, that's the other point too. That's the other point. What if we have 80% of what we want to say is in the first episode?
Then it would spill over. Yeah.
Yeah. We might be able to do it, but I maybe we're getting closer. And maybe the same logic could apply to the love episode. Episode 1 is here's what love is, and then episode 2 is here's what it isn't.
Okay, let me tell you something from my experience. When I'm teaching, I put a syllabus. I put what I'm.
And then you ignore it.
And then no, I don't ignore it. I have to cover everything at the end. The thing is, I go at a pace that's going to be determined not only by that syllabus and information that I have there, but also the interaction I'm going to be having with the students. And almost always I fall behind. Almost always. Things take much longer than I intend them to take.
Was that the whole point? Shit.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be, and here's how you fix it.
No. At the very end, if I have a fixed amount of time, which is basically what I have, because at the end, my final exams have a fixed time where they're going to happen. I have to do some kind of a compromise. Either I rush through a few things, or I end up cutting something that I think is not essential. But is that how we're going to be approaching this? Is there going to be a time limit? Or is that something that can be considered an open program where, okay, we finished what we thought we were going to finish instead of 10, say, in supposedly they're going to last for 15 lectures / episodes. Is that possible? Is there going to be a fixed time limit ahead of time? I don't know. Some people might have an expectation that this is going to be a well-defined structure with a time limit. Other people might say, well, let it take as much time as it wants to take.
Well, here's what's cool. Well, first of all, I don't think we're going to have the problem of finishing early. If we have the problem of we didn't finish in time, we have some space that could be edited. So Each episode is an hour. First 45 minutes is lecture. Then we have 15 minutes of Q&A. If we didn't finish, we could not do the 15 minutes of Q&A because the next episode is a dedicated Q&A session for that content. So we could expand the 45 minutes up to an hour. If it still goes longer, whoever is doing the lecture, me and the other person, could on our own decide to go a little bit longer. So maybe it ends up an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different ways of.
And then another thing that could be done is we could move content to the next episode and change schedule.
Possibly.
So all workable.
Well, we also need to finish this one today because we're approaching.
I think we're done now. I don't have any more to say. We finished on time, 5 minutes early. Success.
Go enjoy the sun.
Yeah. I don't have any sun right now.
Well, right now, yeah, I don't have sun either. It's very cloudy.
You're in Seattle. You don't even get sun, right? It's not hot over there?
Well,
God hates you guys over there. Okay, let's go ahead and end it. And Usama, can you stay on for a second?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you next week.